What is going on, unfortunate Minnesota sports fans? Today we got another edition of Skol Surge, a little bit of a double up on this Thursday because we've got some pretty cool news coming in, and it's a big day for Minnesota sports. That is why I'm sporting the Carl Towns jersey. Important night for the Wolves. Wearing this in hopes that he has a good game tonight. Better game last game, but still some mistakes. We'll see. Pretty excited. Make sure you tune into that one. Anyway, speaking of big news, like I said, the Vikings are signing tight end Robert Tonyan, who I honestly did not know was a free agent, but I do like him a lot, so I'm pretty excited about that. Take a look at his stats here. Last season was playing for the Bears, which I was also unaware of, probably just because of Cole Kmet and maybe their quarterback situation. But had a few really good seasons for the Packers. As you see in 2020, had 11 touchdowns. Averaged 11 yards per catch. He actually did that. He actually averaged over 10 yards a catch for 4 or 5 straight years. So yeah, really good addition. This kind of makes me realize that T.J. Hockenson might not be as ready as we had hoped for. But this is good insurance. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with the move. I love Robert Tonyan. I'm a big fan. He is 30 years old. But that is why we signed a one-year deal, singular year deal. A little bit of a prove-it year more so. But like I said, insurance move. Really good pickup, though. I love this one. And speaking of Robert Tonyan and other former Packers that are now on the Vikings, Aaron Jones. So, yeah, there's the teammate chemistry there. And also, the Vikings game coordinator and tight end coach, Brian Angelico, actually coached Tonyan in Green Bay in 2018, so a little bit of a connection there. Just building the bonds here in Minnesota. I like to see it. Here's the current tight end room for the Minnesota Vikings. Of course, at number 1 is T.J. Hockenson. Now that red Q that you see there means questionable, unfortunately. As we know, Hockenson did tear his MCL, ACL, basically everything in his knee after that dirty shot in the Lions game last season. So it's looking now that he's probably not going to be ready for week 1. But that's okay because look at this stacked tight end room right here. Robert Tonyan, Josh Oliver, Johnny Munt, plus Sammis Rees, who was signed after a tryout. I'm not sure if he's going to be a practice squad guy or if he's just not going to make the final roster, but I've heard good things about him. Just not a lot of stats and not a lot of film on him. So it's looking like this is probably going to be the 4 tight ends that we were rolling with. I would maybe even put Tonyan over Oliver, but of course Josh Oliver is a great run blocker, which is going to be his primary role. Tonyan will be the pass catcher to start the season, so we'll see how that goes. But, yep, praying for a speedy recovery for T.J. Hockenson as well, of course. All right, another mandatory Wolves update, especially today. Probably is the biggest game of the season, facing elimination for the very first time after starting 6-0 in the playoffs. It hurts, but that is Minnesota sports, and I apologize to everyone else that has to endure it. Or if you've jumped on the Wolves bandwagon, I apologize as well. I know a lot of Lakers fans have, and it kind of felt like for a little bit amount of time, we were America's team. And maybe that ship has sailed, but a win tonight would help out a lot. Force a Game 7. We'll be back in Denver for a Game 7, but just get some momentum back. We've got some keys to victory here. Number 1, Mike Conley has to play. And breaking news, actually, Mike Conley is expected to return to the lineup tonight per Shams. So pretty excited about that. Big key piece. Although Nickeil Alexander-Walker did play great covering for him, which he usually always has, but I prefer him coming off the bench. It's a great role. Even though Monte Morris played great, I don't really want him playing that many minutes a game. Just because he's not really in the flow with the offense, and it kind of just throws everything off. But shout out to Monte Morris because he played a heck of a game. He really was one of the only players out there that looked like he wanted to win and could actually hit his shots and was being aggressive at the rim. So hopefully he does get some minutes tonight, but I'm going to feel more comfortable with Conley and Naw coming off the bench. Or Conley starting, Naw coming off the bench. Next, Cat and Ant combined for 60-plus points. I believe I actually mentioned this in the previous episode because that's really what I believe, and I'm thinking it's probably going to come true. This is really a prove-it game for Ant. A lot of people have kind of switching on him on social media. As you know, the MJ comparisons were coming in pretty heavy, and now they're kind of fading out. This is that game where he can prove that those are fair. Those are fair assumptions that he can be the next Jordan, and he is that type of has that caliber of a player. So yeah, I'm expecting a big night from Ant, maybe 40 from Ant, 20 from Cat. We'll see. I feel like that's really all we need. And then the bench battle, we have to win the bench battle. In the first two games, our bench looked dominant as it is. On paper, our bench is miles ahead of Denver. Even though they are a great team, they have great team chemistry. Just as far as skill-wise and the players that come off of our bench, there really should be no competition. I mean, you can't let Reggie Jackson and KCP outscore you. You just cannot, especially if you're Naz Reid. Sixth man of the year, this is time to really show up. And when you get in that game, you got to make stuff happen, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I'm not worried about Naz on defense. He actually looked pretty good covering Jokic. So if Jokic is on the court with Naz, I say he would do a pretty good job at guarding him. Now, the non-Jokic minutes is the slash here with the bench battle because it's basically the same thing. Jokic isn't off the court a lot, but when he is, we have to take advantage of it. And on Tuesday night, that is something we did not do. We had those little spurts. Maybe it looked like we were going to go on one of those 10-0 runs, and we just could not pull it together. We'd have a turnover after a scoring drive, or the Nuggets would come down and hit a pull-up three. Aaron Gordon, KCP, Reggie. I mean, they just can't miss. So we need one of those nights. I didn't add this bullet point here, but we definitely need one of those nights where the Nuggets are just missing shots because it seems like they can't miss. It seems like they're the luckiest team in the NBA, but we can't sit here and cry about it. We just got to do the same thing. We got to hit our shots. So I'm assuming the injured Finch has the boys in the lab right now taking some shots today, and hopefully they'll look a lot better in tonight's game. Now the third bullet here is defense, and defense. Three defenses because, that's a focal point. The defense has to return to what they look like in the regular season and the first two games of the series. It's just they've been struggling lately, and to me, my first reaction was that they just haven't been as aggressive enough. Like you saw last game, they really made Ant uncomfortable with those double teams. You hate to leave somebody like Jokic open, but Jokic is going to get his either way. He's going to score 20, 30, 40 points, somewhere in there. He's going to have a good game. Either way, offensively, he's practically unguardable. Rudy, is, like I said, defense, Rudy is going to have to step up tonight. But when you watch the game tape, and just for me watching the game live, I mean, Rudy was covering him. He was covered. Jokic was covered. It's just he's the best player in the world. And I think Jokic probably would have done the exact same thing to AD, to Wemby, to whoever else you want to throw in there. I think Wemby might have a little bit better of a chance just because he is quick on his feet, but the Jokic footwork is just it's unstoppable, and it seems like he can just throw up a shot blindfolded behind his back, in between his legs. It doesn't matter, and it's going to go in. And those are the kind of things you just got to take and go back on the court and just keep the score up. The score has to be like this the whole game, and we got to get those runs going. We have to go on runs. It feels like we haven't gone on a run in weeks, and it hurts to watch, and it's really aggravating, to be honest. That's why the last bullet point is play with some heart. Of course, Anthony Edwards is the best player on our team, one of the best players in the NBA, but it seems like when he's on a drought or when he gets frustrated, he just doesn't play with enough heart, and that's what I want to see tonight, and I think he's going to come out like that. And I mean, I can't really speak on it because I don't know how frustrating it is to be double-teamed like that every game, but you got to remember, I'm being double-teamed for a reason. They think and they know I am dangerous, so you have to prove that. You got to overcome that, overcome the adversity, and you got to play with some heart. That means hustle. There was a lot of loose balls that Edwards just could not grab, and especially that one on the fast break where Aaron Gordon came by and slapped the ball. I mean, you just can't do that. You have to run the entire game. You got to chase balls. You have to hustle. So play with some heart tonight, guys. All right, let's get back into the Vikings now. Sorry for the little break in the Wolves, but it's an important day. It's an important day. The schedule release video, it was kind of promising at first. This outfit and look of T.J. Hawkinson actually made me laugh a little bit. It made me chuckle. But then it kind of slowed down and got a little bit boring. Not very creative. They made the whole thing on like Microsoft Word or something, I guess. Yeah, I was not a fan of it, but the schedule release isn't that important, although I was excited to see what the Vikings cooked up this year. I would say we are losers for our schedule release video. Not great, but who cares? Who cares? Sadly, I have to admit the Falcons are the winners with their NFL Street rendition of their schedule release. It was sick. I'm not going to lie. It was really dope. I loved it. I probably would have added a few things like maybe the dates and the locations of the games as they went through the video. But either way, man, awesome. Shout out to their social media team. They did a great job. So We can hate on the Falcons, but that's where you got to give them their props right there. Shout out to the social media team. All right, here is the Vikings schedule. I'm sure all of you have seen it. Dope wallpaper here. The Vikings are always pretty consistent with cool wallpapers. So, yeah. Like we said last episode, starting off against the Giants. So, let's start off strong. And we're going to go ahead and show you the projected NFL win totals for the NFC North. You see the lines up top. No surprise there. Pretty fair. But tied, actually, with the Packers. And this might be an unpopular opinion because I am biased, but I think a lot of people would agree that this NFC North division is probably one of the best in football. Just really stacked. Got a lot of young talent, especially at quarterback, besides maybe Jared Goff, but who had a pretty good season last year. Slightly overpaid, but that's okay. Whatever they want to do. Anyway, so the Vikings line is at 6.5, so they're projecting us to go 7-10, which I think is pretty fair. It's actually higher than I thought it would be. But for the most part, these projected win totals, they don't go extremely low unless you're like the Panthers or the Patriots or something like that, or the Giants even. But yeah, 6.5 is pretty fair. I'm not that mad about that. I think they easily could have put it at about 5.5 for 6 wins on the season. But 7-10 is a pretty good prediction, especially with how explosive the offense still is and the defensive additions and all those great things. Anyway, here is my schedule prediction. Like I said, Week 1 is an easy W. I imagine that Darnold will probably be the quarterback. I think O'Connell is going to roll with Darnold for Week 1, just for safety reasons and for the sake of JJ's career, really. I mean, when you look at O'Connell, someone who has been in his shoes and knows exactly what it's like to be a rookie quarterback, he doesn't want to hurt his career. He wants to give him the best chance to be great, and I think that would be starting Sam Darnold Week 1, who is the veteran. And, Darnold's really never had a team like this. You think about the Niners, but he was never the guy. He was the backup. He was the, emergency quarterback per se. Well, he was a second string, but he was an emergency quarterback, you could say. Anyway, Week 2, I do expect 2 back-to-back losses. This is a really tough way to start the season. You get a great Week 1 game against a Giants team that is just really not equipped at the moment, and they have a lot of questions as well. But then you have the Niners at home, which is a plus, which is great, but I just think they're going to be unstoppable, man. They always start the season off pretty strong, here and there, but they're just too good. I don't see us winning that game. I just don't. Unless our defense can make Brock Purdy uncomfortable, who I really don't trust, but since he is getting older now, I think he's starting to mature and he's really fitting into that role. But it's really a toss-up because, Purdy could come out this season and just not be very good. That is also a possibility, so we will see. But again, Houston, I think their wide receiver trio is just unstoppable, especially for our secondary where we still have a lot of questions. I think some of those guys like Kyrie Jackson and some of the other cornerbacks on the depth chart will kind of come into shape and form maybe into Week 5, Week 6. But yeah, that's going to be a lot of pressures, and CJ Stroud is just really smart with the football, so I think he matches up really well against our defense, so I expect him to take that win. Now, the first shocker here is a win at Green Bay. I don't have the Green Bay hype, man. I just don't. Let's not forget what Jordan Love looked like to start the season last season. And, of course, that may be, just a Vikings hater mentality, but I just don't see him coming out and being super good right away. I think they will be solid. I think they will probably be over us in the standings if we're being realistic. But I don't know, man. I just don't trust him. And then we have the Jets in London. I expect a win there for sure. And then this is where the season kind of starts to fall apart, where we kind of had that at the beginning of the 2023-2024 season. And I see Sam Darnold struggling with turnovers, and that's just kind of been the story of his career. We're going to have a lot of Nick Mullen flashbacks, I'm afraid. But I'd much rather see a quarterback duel with J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold as opposed to Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins, because that was terrible. But anyway, I do expect him to struggle. These are probably going to be some close games, maybe one blowout in there, unfortunately. Could be Detroit. But yeah, I see him, going on a bad streak of 3 games and maybe even coming into that, or JJ maybe even coming into that Indiana game. And then JJ will be the starter, in my opinion, Week 10 at Jacksonville, and that is where we go on a run. You can say it's unrealistic. I don't care. I have that feeling, and by that time, I think JJ will be fully ready. And my prediction is that the offense will look great. The defense will play good. We'll be in close games. We're not going to be getting blown out. But it's just going to come down to those game time drives and the game winning drives that I don't think Darnold will be able to protect the football, and I think McCarthy will. So as we see, I believe it's a 7-game win streak. I'm not going to waste time and count all the W's I put on there, but I believe it is a 7-game win streak to close out the season, and then we drop 2 to Green Bay and Detroit at the end of the season. Just because I think there's going to be an insane battle for the playoffs in the NFC North, and it's going to get pretty tight. But I'm expecting us to finish 10-7. Now, that is my honest, realistic prediction. Now, is it going to go exactly like it does on this schedule? Maybe not, but I'm feeling 10-7. Sue me. Maybe 9-8. I think the lowest is probably, I don't know, maybe 6 wins, 7 wins, just like they projected. And I think the highest would be 11 wins, so maybe 11-6. But 10-7 is kind of the sweet spot for me, so that was my prediction. We like to dream big around here. Anyway, that's all for the video. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at SodaSurge. And our question of the day, of course, we always have a question of the day in these videos. Today is, what will be the Vikings' record this season? Like I said, my prediction is 10-7. Let us know in the comments what you think and why. And you can also do the same thing where you give us a peak and low. So whatever you want to do with that, but just let us know, and thanks for watching. Peace.